I blame the old work slogan, if you can lean, you can clean. America's known for its hustle culture. I honestly have nothing against putting in a lot of work and a hustle. Although I say save your best energy for something that's for you and not for someone else. That brings us to this article today from Business Insider. American move to Italy. Learn to focus less on work. Life is better by Creshonda Smith. I'm not particularly a fan of the anti work movement because, frankly, some work needs to happen for society to function. People need to work as linemen so that the electricity keeps going, to keep the lights on, quite literally. Not to mention keep refrigeration operating so that, I don't know, diabetics don't start dropping dead because they no longer have insulin, which needs to be kept refrigerated. Now, of course, those are just a couple of examples of things society actually needs people to do. But when it comes to like TPS reports and office space, I can kind of understand why people are fed up with working. So before I read what Creshonda Smith has to say about living in Italy being far more relaxing, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe for daily videos, and comment your predictions on what she has to say and whether you think America is a little too focused on working and less on leisure. Because again, at a certain point, some work needs to get done, but we should also take into account people's needs for rest. Those are the main points there. After getting my first job at 14 years old, I became hardwired to feel like my life would be a combination of school, work, and limited play until I retired. That mindset followed me everywhere, including across the Atlantic, when my husband, children, and I moved from Cleveland to Rome in 2014. After spending time in Italy's capital, we decided to move our family farther south to Mormano, a quiet town tucked in the mountains with less than 3,000 people, and have been there since. When we first moved, I expected to experience culture shocks in relation to the language, the food, and maybe even the fashion. What I didn't expect, however, was to come face to face with just how deeply American my relationship to rest really was. Yeah, Americans are pretty workaholic. I'll give you that. I mean, this is the sixth video I've recorded today, but that's different because it's something that I want to do, that I want to make a living off of someday. I have to put in the work on my books if I am to make something out of that. That being said, I also acknowledge the need to rest and take a step back. As I said in a past video, I found that when I stepped away from playing The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask to make dinner, eat it, and then come back and try the mini games I was stuck on, I found that I was actually able to complete them within minutes after I got back from my dinner break. So again, some degree of work needs to be done. There's always going to be some kind of effort, but rest is important. Whether you're working on a side hustle you want to take full time in the near future, or you're stuck in a video game and maybe the best way is to figure it out is to stop playing and then come back, because at a certain point you can know exactly what you got to do, but if you're too tired you're more likely to mess up and then be stuck there longer. Trust me, I've learned this from video games. As long as you are able to address what you need to when it comes up in side hustles or something like that, you can otherwise just work when you want. Back to the article. I didn't realize how addicted I was to productivity as an American. And this is a picture of her small town. Looks very much like The Godfather. This is why Francis Ford Coppola wanted to film in actual Italy for the scenes that took place there. For most of my life, being busy felt like my default setting. I genuinely believed that if I wasn't actively working towards something, I was falling behind. It's good to have goals, if I'm being completely honest, but you don't have to be on it 24/7, 365. Again, taking breaks is perfectly healthy. You have to incorporate rest days into a workout schedule if you want to actually have the muscles develop and become what you want. Or so that they actually have time to reconstruct if you're just trying to stir the waters, as Chuck Norris's mother put it. I'd internalized the idea that a relentless work ethic was how you achieved the American dream. So when I moved to a place where people unapologetically paused their days, not just for vacation, but for lunch, coffee, or for no reason at all, I didn't know what to do with myself. Like Deadpool said in Deadpool and Wolverine, you're never gonna see that country's flag on the moon, but they are so happy. I say that because I forget which country it was. I'll look it up later. But from the sound of it, you're probably not going to see an Italian flag on the moon anytime soon. Not to mention, unless they go all in, because I think another reason that America was able to get it done in the 60s was we had enough people, which, if Tim Pool's prediction about the demographic collapse because of the plummeting birth rate, uh, it might be a little bit more difficult for us to get to Mars. We'll see what happens with that. I am confident that AI and automation will make up the difference. Back to the article. I'd watch my neighbors sit on their balconies for hours in the middle of a workday, chatting or doing nothing, and it drove me crazy on their behalf. When I'd walk past cafes where people lingered over espresso, I'd feel a wave of unease, even though I had nowhere to be. Wow, that sounds brutal. For her, that is, in terms of feeling guilty about taking a break. Yeah, I can tell you right now, American culture, if you ignore work, there's always the mentality of we need to keep the line moving, or a restaurant might be like, we need to make it so these people get out of this booth as soon as possible so that we can bring in the next set of hungry customers and get our money's worth, make more money, and get their money's worth for whatever they pay for the place. Fun fact about McDonald's seats, this wasn't in the movie The Founder, but the seats of McDonald's at the time were literally designed to be uncomfortable enough that you don't want to sit there for very long. The idea being people will sit down, eat their stuff, and then get up and leave. They are not going to linger. They are not going to take up space that could be taken up by someone else who will be bringing in more money. Back to the article. Trying to slow down made me question my self worth. For the first 6 years after my move, I felt like I was having a mini identity crisis. I was 29 years old and still questioning my value if I wasn't actively being productive. The tension started wearing on me. My body felt anxious, and my mind felt like it was always searching for the next task. Meanwhile, the world around me wasn't rushing, and it was inviting me to slow down. After years of resisting it, I finally started to let go. I blame the old work slogan, if you can lean, you can clean. That's just the thing with companies. They want to get their money's worth for the labor, which I can understand from the perspective of the people running the business. They do need to bring in some money. They need to keep costs to a minimum. If someone's not contributing, then I can't say I blame them for going full Commander Oppo and being like, I'm sorry, employee. It's time for you to leave. And for context, I just mean them going up and walking up to them and saying that, not like the same way Commander Oppo did in the movie. Trying to slow down made me question my self-worth. For the first 6 years after my move, I felt like I was having a mini identity crisis. I was 29 years old and still questioning my value if I wasn't actively being productive. The tension started wearing on me. My body felt anxious, and my mind felt like it was always searching for the next task. Meanwhile, oh wait, I already read that part. The change started gradually and was mainly the result of other moms consistently inviting me to the local cafe for espresso. I didn't want to keep sounding rude by declining, so I gave in for the first time and found myself antsy making small talk at 10 a.m. From there, I accepted more invitations to hang out with friends and started to learn to be okay with taking unscheduled breaks. Honestly, This is exactly why hourly pay, as I've said in the past, I'm going to say again, is a terrible work structure. It incentivizes people to find busy work instead of, I don't know, taking a break where they can come back from it and put out higher quality work, or you can actually save labor costs by being like, okay, you finish. No, wait, that's only if you actually pay by the hour. But if you paid by the task, then the people who manage to get the task done sooner, but also effectively, more very important, gotta make that clear. People who figure it out, who get it done sooner, and get it done well on top of that, they are rewarded with more time to relax or do what they want. If something happens to actually take the amount of time that they would make if they were being paid hourly, that's a different story, but I digress. Back to the article, I realized I needed the rest. When I first started to slow down, I felt like failure. But then something strange happened. I started to feel better. Self care, which I'd always deprioritized, started to become part of my routine. I began to give myself permission to take walks without listening to a podcast and sit in the town square with nothing but my thoughts. I learned that dolce far niente, the Italian phrase for the sweetness of doing nothing, isn't laziness. Rather, it's intention, presence, and an understanding that rest isn't something you earn, it's something you need. True for both regular life and for video games, as I've learned from my experience. Taking a break can actually be really beneficial. Living in Italy hasn't made me less ambitious, but it has allowed me to measure success a little differently. Yes, I still work hard, but happiness and peace of mind mean more to me now. After all, what good is the money if you're too busy to enjoy it with the people you love the most? I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's good to make more money, but at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, am I actually going to be able to put this money to good use? Am I actually going to be able to enjoy the benefits of it? Like, yeah, I understand if you're in a situation where your rent is way higher than it should be. I can understand the need for that. But other than that, outside of that context, you really gotta think about whether you're actually going to be able to enjoy the benefits of that extra money or not. The true cost of overtime is not simply the hours worked, nor what the 50% boost that the company pays you. To wrap up the article, at the end of the day, I know that I'm allowed to live my life, even when I'm doing absolutely nothing. Well, technically, you're always doing something. The question is it for you? Is it for someone else? That's the real question. But yeah, just taking a step back in all things in life can be very helpful. I know I keep bringing this up, but I'm gonna say it again. I literally experienced this through video games where I would be struggling with something. The walkthrough had given me every bit of information I needed to, but I just couldn't get the timing right. Not just for the shooting galleries in The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. I'm talking about Donkey Kong Country Returns HD, when I was going through mirror mode to try and get the 200% completion, which, spoiler alert, I did. What really helped was taking a break and then coming back to it after at least an hour, I think. Again, this is like when I took a longer break to make and eat a meal and then come back to it. Compare that to work. There's a reason that breaks are generally required if you are working more than a certain number of hours. But on that note, I'm going to leave it here for the video. You comment down below what you think of all this. Give this video a like, subscribe for daily videos. I'll see you soon.